It's not something that we think of 5 million people, 10 million people. What we are going to do will impact a billion people, right? With a B. One of the things that we were looking at in our research, we figured out was that some of the things that are very difficult for people to buy online are things like socks.
How do you see India of 2 years down the line, or maybe 3 years down the line, after the impact of ONDC has completely been absorbed and been felt?
If I had a crystal ball and I could wish for, I would say that in the next 2 to 3 years, I will cover for at least 60% of India being able to transact.
Hello and welcome to an exciting episode of the GFF show in partnership with Fintech Till Say. Today, we have with us Mr. Rahul Handa, who heads strategic initiatives at ONDC. Hi, Mr. Rahul. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Shreyas. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to present out what we are doing at ONDC.
It's always a pleasure, sir. ONDC, I mean, it has been the buzzword in the community for quite some time and everyone is excited. But I know today what we try to aim is to kind of demystify it so that almost a lot of people can understand, because सबको पता है ONDC क्या है, but what happens in a lot of cases is people know a certain part and they don't know the other part, या फिर understanding सही से नहीं है. So the idea is to kind of create a bit more awareness and demystify it so that people can understand it. But before we get into that, let's take a step back. I would love to hear a bit about your background, what your journey has been like, and what brought you where you are today in your career journey. Over to you.
So prior to joining ONDC, I ran a couple of startups, not very successfully. And prior to that, I was a standard corporate man. So I worked for Cognizant, I worked for Ernst & Young in India. Before that, I was working for Gartner Consulting in the US, etc. What brought me here was an option to look at things very, very differently and to do something that has never ever been done anywhere in the world before. So literally the first time when I heard about the idea, I said, "ये क्या बोल रहे हैं यार? मतलब क्या है ये?" ठीक है? Even I didn't understand it because it was literally so out there. Right. So because it was something that has never been done before in the world. It's a first time in the world. It's an initiative that is it is government backed. It's a Government of India initiative, but it is still a private organization.
Right.
And like you rightly said, right? Lots of people know about ONDC, but lots of people have lots of misconceptions about ONDC also, which hopefully we will cover out today.
Definitely. So before we kind of get into it, would love to hear one thing, like what got you sold on the idea of ONDC? Like what made you think ki whatever I'm doing right now, I should leave that and this is something that I want to pursue and this is something that is going to make an impact?
Okay, so let's start on basically what is ONDC and what got me and my team also very, very interested into this. Right? As I said, it's something that is being done for the first time in the world. It's never been done before. And most importantly, it is something that is going to impact the country at large. It's not something that we're doing for 5 million people, 10 million people. What we are going to do will impact a billion people, right? With a B. And that was the clincher for all of us. Basically, it was like, all right, guys, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity that you're going to get to be able to work on something like this and be able to turn around and say, I am doing something that is going to impact the lives of so many people, and it is going to be something that is going to help the entire population as a whole to grow and to leverage digital.
Right.
And that was the clincher, right? The idea and the fact that it is going to go something which is going to impact an entire population base.
Indeed. I think it is super exciting for all of us, who are in the community, and we have been hearing a lot of things. And I think whatever I've heard about ONDC till now, most of it's second-hand information though. It's always been, and it's super inspiring, and it's always exciting to see what what kind of impacts it will bring at multiple level, be it the e-commerce space, be it how it will change the way we experience e-commerce and all of that. So let's deep dive into it. Let's start with the basics first. What exactly is ONDC?
Okay, so let's start with that, right? It's something that is unique in the sense that it is something which is DPI, right? It is digital public good, which basically means that we are building something without a profit motive. As in, ONDC is not a profit-driven organization. What we're building is something which is for to activate out and allow for an unbundled and an interoperability of. To give you an example of what is unbundling and interoperability, right? If you're sitting on Gmail and somebody else is sitting on Hotmail, it doesn't mean that you will not be able to send emails to each other. It just means that because both of them are literally on the same platter, on the same rails, right? They've created the same structure and the same way that they can actually communicate with each other. They're able to send an email from one system to another system, right? As long as you're on SMTP, you will be able to do. Right. Similarly speaking, little less interoperable or unbundled, but it is not possible that you will walk into a bank and submit a check and expect that the other person, if there is money in the bank, do not honor that check. Right? Generally, it will work because that is also, there is an interoperability built out. That's where we started off and looked at it and said, okay, if all of that is there, then we have direct line examples of that already happening. Why can't we do that in the commerce space? So, in the platform world, just to deep dive and give you more information about ONDC. In a platform world, the platform manages the customer also, they also manage the seller also, they manage the entire logistics side to it. So everything is in a self-contained unit.
True.
Now, what that basically means is that if they are in that one space, they are controlling what the customer gets to see. They are also managing to control the sellers, and they are managing the user experience. Right. Now, how about if we turn around and just break it up and literally from an unbundled and interoperable perspective, turn around and say, each one of these are now functions. Everybody does not have to try and do everything because you may not be very good at something. Right? You might be good at another factor, which means that you could be very, very good at doing seller acquisitions. I mean, all the sellers in a particular locality, you have the ability to go out and get all of them, but you don't have the ability to do customer acquisition, right? Similarly speaking, you may be very, very good at being able to pick up a product from a point and deliver it to somewhere else to do the logistics side, but you may not be able to do customer acquisition or seller acquisition on the other side to it. So why are we trying to not leverage the economies of scale for all practical purposes of saying that somebody's already done something, right? Leverage that and move forward on that. Don't try and recreate the wheel on every little function. So what that also means is that if I have, so as you said, right, if there is a buyer app and a seller app, a buyer and a seller side on a particular platform, if I just break it up and I turn around and say there is now a buyer side application which responsibility is to interact with the customer, right? Think of them as only as the agents for the customer. Their only role in life is to look after the customer. Similarly speaking, there is a seller application whose only role in life is to look after the sellers, right? So there is no cross purpose, there is nothing like that happening. What that means now is that the moment I have both of these two separated out components to it, hopefully they will also be able to provide better service to their endpoints.
True.
So what ONDC does is saying that there is a buyer application, and the buyer application can be somebody like a telco, can be Paytm, pin code, anybody, right? Or a taxi cab company, etc. And you are going to them and turning around saying whether you want to buy a refrigerator or you want to buy their type of products, or you want to buy food, or you want to buy fashion, anything.
Right.
They are going to take that request, send it to the ONDC gateway. Okay, and that is all that is ONDC. ONDC is just that gateway. There is no front end, there is no back end, etc., etc.
Got it.
And the other side to it, it gets sent to various seller side applications who are dealing with that particular type of product. Now, their sellers are locked into them. So everybody now responds back onto the same buyer application that the customer started.
Got it.
Customer journey stays on that buyer application itself. So the customer is not getting hived off somewhere else. Okay. So the customer decides what product it is. And the moment they decide what product it is, ONDC steps out of the picture. Remember, we are not trying to build another platform, right? We are only there for search and discovery. So the moment we step out, now it becomes a digital contract between the buyer application on behalf of the customer and the seller application on behalf of the seller. Okay? And now there's a contract. So the product flow happens one way, and using the recall service provider model that we've built out, which utilizes NBBL also as one of the settlement agencies, money flow will happen the other.
Understood. Got it. So if I were to kind of summarize what I understood, right? So you take the existing model of the marketplace, unbundle all the pieces out of it, and then make it in such a way, make essentially a gateway in such a way that you are creating something that will enable multiple executors or multiple players to basically plug in at each of the nodal points. For example, buyer apps is essentially one nodal point, or seller app is essentially another nodal point, and logistics partner is another nodal point, and a payment partner is another nodal point. So each of these places could have interchangeable blocks coming in and serving that purpose as needed. Is my understanding correct, or I'm kind of
exactly on, right? Literally what that means is that if I am the customer, I'm the buyer application, under normal circumstances, I would have had to go and create all of those different contractual obligations with the different sellers so that I can get them on, right?
Good.
At which point in time, how will you get everything? I mean, it's not possible that you can cover for all types of products, for all types of segments, for the entire length and breadth of India. That is just not possible. Right?
Exactly.
So this basically, the unbundling part of it allows for that, just that.
Understood. So let's take a step back here and try to understand what exactly this means for various ecosystem players. So for example, in this case, if you start with micro retailers and sellers, for example, in general, what does that mean for this kind of a community? What kind of an impact will it have on the way they do business or e-commerce business specifically versus the existing marketplace model? How does things change?
Before I get into that, let's talk about why ONDC was kind of set up also, right?
Sure.
Because that can drive towards this side.
Perfect.
Basically, when we started off, what we realized was that just about 6 to 7% of the top end of the Indian population was transacting digitally.
Right.
And I'm not talking about UPI transactions. I'm actually saying they were buying and selling products digitally.
Got it.
If I looked at the businesses, that number is roughly between 1 to 3% of the businesses in India are actually online and selling and digitally transacting. So there seemed to be like a divide of the haves and the have-nots.
Right.
So one of the reasons why we were set up was to try and figure out a way that we could get the small sellers in India to be able to buy and sell digitally, which means that you need to be discoverable, right? If you want to be able to sell something, you have to be discoverable.
Right.
Now, the second part to it, that is from the seller side, right? There is also a customer side to it, which was how do we make sure that the unserved and the underserved can be brought onto the network so that they can also take advantage of the overall Indian digital revolution that is taking place.
True.
That was what started it off. One of the other factors that we looked at was there is a lot of manual processing that is happening, because of which overall costing goes up, right? There is a lack of high provenance of third-party data. So I don't trust the data that is coming in. And finally, there is also a very, very high servicing cost from a customer perspective.
True.
Which is why a lot of these different platforms were trying to only look at product sets at the top end of the market, so to speak, which means that you were looking at products at the top end of the market, which means that you were only looking at customers also only at the top end.
True.
Right. Now, as I said, we are trying to see if we can take it down to everybody. And
Right.
as part of that, some of the major things that we are looking at doing is, how do I, in the next 5 years, add additionally another 3.75 lakh crores into the economy for just digital transactions, right? GMV,
Right.
additional GMV.
Hmm.
We're looking at something like 90 crore buyers to come onto the network.
Hmm.
Okay, 90 to another billion people kind of thing. How do we get about another 12 lakh sellers onto the network over the next 5 years? And also, very, very importantly, how do I cover 75% of the PIN codes in it?
Got it.
And these are published numbers that we are looking at. So
Hmm.
when I look at all of this, that is when we said, okay, if I'm looking at small players to be brought on, and I'm looking at the customers, etc., to be brought on, then we went back into it, and when we did a deep dive, and we realized that there were certain other problems. Right? There is a margin pressure that the platforms have to put on, otherwise they will not be able to succeed.
Right.
So there is a margin pressure. There is a terms and conditions issue that the sellers have to face. There is disintermediation risk that the sellers face. Disintermediation being my product is doing really well on the platform will white label it and become their own. And largely that entire component of being able to say that there is a discoverability issue, right? So
True.
margin, disintermediation, all of that. And from a customer perspective, it was a standard thing that, will I find all the products I want at the price point I want, at the service I want, right? And that was what kind of sort of stopped up a lot of different things that were happening. Now to your question around how will it, what we are trying to do, impact population.
Right.
For all practical purposes, by the way, we are not trying to compete against any of these platforms. As a matter of fact, because of us, they'll grow more also, because we are building another entire category, so to speak, for them.
True.
That being said, we are also not trying to kill them. We will grow that entire segment. And because of that, what will happen is that there will be more buyers who will be able to come onto the network and be able to sell, right? One of the standard examples that we provide out, that Koshi is also generally always giving out also, is his tea example, right? There'll be a certain set of people who will walk into a hotel, into a 5-star hotel, pay 500 rupees for a tea. There'll be another set of people who do a smaller restaurant and a hotel and pay 200 rupees. There's also another set of people who will go down to the local tapri on the street and order a 5 and 10 rupee tea. Now, the services that are also involved along with that price point also change, right? So that means that the customer, whatever they are expecting, is going to be dependent on the price point also. So when we talk to people, we tell them, open your mind to an idea that a particular product and a particular service will have a certain conjunction to it, which means that the price point that you're charging for that particular product and the service that you're going to offer to it is going to drive a certain amount of certain type of people who will come to buy. It doesn't mean that everybody is always going to ask for 5-star service for the 5-star and pay the lowest amount of money. That will also not happen, but it builds it out. So the short question, the short answer to your question, after a while, is that there'll be more options for customers to buy products and services that they're used to buying in the physical world. And in the digital world, more and more sellers will be able to get on and sell their products at the price point, etc., that they require, without having to worry about margins and terms and conditions and when will they get paid, etc., as well as disintermediation risk.
Understood. Makes sense. So all in all, I think there were always like in the early days, right, when we kind of heard about what ONDC is doing and what essentially the vision was. A lot of people kind of had the impression that this is essentially competing against the existing marketplaces and it's going to kind of replace it. And there was a lot of apprehension as well and a lot of misconceptions. So I think this clears a lot of that out, right? You are, as in, if I look at it from a marketplace's perspective, I think it is adding a lot more customer base, which was essentially not accessing the platforms earlier, which will now be able to kind of come and access the goods and services that you're selling on your platform. If I got what you kind of saw explained correctly, right?
Absolutely.
Perfect. And from the sellers, and I think the major problem that we're solving is from a discoverability perspective. Especially, I think the smaller ones, which were only locally discoverable, now have an entire country's worth of market, so as to say, kind of that can kind of access their goods and services.
Yeah, exactly that.
Perfect. So I think that will open up a lot of avenues. Also, is it and I think in a recent panel discussion that I did on ONDC, I think with a few key players who are currently buyer and seller apps on the platform, I think there was an interesting point that came up that पहले के ज़माने में अगर if someone let's say moves away from their hometown, right, and जैसे migrate होके मुंबई आके कोई बंदा है जो लखनऊ से आके बैठा है, उसको for example लखनवी टुंडे कबाब खाने का मन कर रहा है, so earlier he was not able to order it in a way like मुंबई में तो मिलने नहीं वाला है वो स्वाद कहीं पे, but is there a way, or maybe I was given to understand at that point of time that there is a possibility that I can order it from Lucknow and get it in Mumbai on the next day delivered to my house? Is that kind of a use case possible, or I'm not sure.
So let's extend that out, right? The use cases for this are that we haven't. There are so many use cases that we don't even know about or will know about. The best part about this is actually going to allow for a lot more innovation for what product and what service gets associated to create this, right? So think of ONDC like a Lego block. Keep putting the Lego blocks together so that you complete that chain, which means that Shreyas sitting in Mumbai wants a product from, say, Lucknow, right? Up to now, that particular platform would have had to go and create all of those contractual obligations with the seller in Lucknow so that they can buy that, right? Now, what is going to happen is that Shreyas sitting in Mumbai can just go to his own buyer side application, put in a request. Request will be sent to the ONDC gateway. We'll go to various sellers of that particular product. Whoever is in Lucknow and the best served for that will send it back to Shreyas on your buyer side application, which would be like, as you said, there are like 8 of them or so on the network so far. Once you've decided what product you want, that's when the logistics journey kicks in and you're able to see that particular product to be able to be picked up from Lucknow and be brought to Mumbai. Now that comes in with another component to it, which is to say that there is a serviceability construct that we have built up. What that means is that the seller can turn around and say, if it is within a 2-kilometer radius, I'll deliver it myself. If it is beyond 10 kilometers, then there is, I'll have my own other person who will do it, but there is another component to it. Or the third one where if it is intra-city, then I need to get I need to get services from the network itself. Any and all of those different components and those combinations are possible. So effectively, product can be from somewhere and the services associated with it, which is, for example, logistics, can be done from by that particular seller itself, can be done by the seller application, can be done by the buyer application, or for that matter, you can turn around and say that you as a customer decide that, yeah, I'm going to go for an evening walk, pick it up on my way home. Right?
No, understood.
Think of it as this, that what we are trying to also do is create a phygital journey. Most of the time that the platforms have actually gone about it, they have created a digital journey, and that's the one that they wanted to manage because that is the only way they could manage it. Right? Now, the way that we have structured it out is that there is a physical world. There is an entire population of people who don't transact digitally and they are still surviving. Right? They are still buying food. They are still living. They are still buying clothes. They have a full life. How do I enable the physical part of that life to be brought digitally without adding the digital boundaries that exist so far?
Understood.
Okay. And to that point, there are so many unique cases that we are looking at. Let's take from a financial perspective itself, right? As a matter of fact, ONDC has just launched out the credit specifications also, so that we're looking at 2 use cases from a credit perspective. But other than that, right? Why can't I provide credit to a farmer to be able to buy cattle? 30, 40,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees, 80,000 rupees, any of that. And or to provide discoverability to an FPO so that they can sell honey, or to let's say and or to local weavers of Kanjivaram saris sitting in Kanchipuram to be able to export their product to Singapore or to Dubai. It's a matter of discoverability.
Interesting.
Right?
Of course. Yes.
They're enabling all of these different combines. So same way, from a credit perspective, can I provide credit to the local auto rickshaw guy so that it's daily credit? He's going to take on 500 rupees or 700 rupees or so for his daily fuel consumption, and he'll pay back at the end of the day. Rather than going to the local loan shark and being gouged out. Right? And as a look at it, the MSME credit gap of what is there in the regularized market versus in the loan shark business, etc., is about 25 trillion rupees. 25 trillion dollars. That is the gap.
Wow. Damn. So, if I were to understand it correctly, right? I mean, I got the e-commerce play really well. Could you explain the financial services play, specifically when you mentioned, let's say, the credit to the farmer or probably credit to the rickshaw guy? And how does that fit into the entire ONDC framework, and how does that work out?
Okay, so very clearly, when we started off, what we quickly realized was that the world doesn't live and work on love and friendship. So if there is a product flow happening, there has to be a money flow that also happens. But there is a component that needs to be associated from the perspective of saying that there is a lot of credit that needs to be provided, whether it is daily credit to the auto rickshaw guy, for example, or there is purchase financing that is required, or there is BNPL, PL, etc. required. All of those are components that have to be part of the overall network. Okay.
Right.
Now that is where ONDC Finance comes into picture. And we have created out workflows for a credit perspective. We are creating out specifications for insurance. And insurance, we're looking at everything from marine, health, auto, life, etc., etc. All of those different things. And we are also looking at mutual funds, and then we look at other liability products, etc. The idea here is that we want to be able to enable whether it is a buyer or a seller to be able to transact online. But that transaction is not devoid of money, which means credit comes in.
Of course.
I'm sending out a particular product. I want to be making sure that I'm insuring it, right? So maybe marine insurance comes into picture, or there is an auto insurance that I want to buy, right? That is that part. There is also that entire part of mutual funds and saying I want to save something, whether it is an SIP or I'm actually setting aside one set of money, etc. That part of it also comes into picture. And then later on, and we are also looking at ONDC gift cards and things like that too. So there is an entire segment of financial services that comes into picture just to enable your regular transactions. We're launching everything.
Right.
Okay. So our view is, so if buying 10,000 tons of steel, okay, or you're trying to export XYZ product, or you're trying to buy food or toothpaste, any and all different combinations are possible. If it transacts, it's on ONDC.
Understood. Okay. So if just to kind of validate my understanding, and please correct me if I'm getting it wrong, let's let me try to explain, or let me try to kind of say out loud what I kind of feel, what feel I got of the financial services landscape, right? Let's take a use case of a farmer who's essentially trying to sell his goods on ONDC through maybe a seller app or something. So in let's say, for example, there's a working capital gap of 3 to 4 days normally, wherein he would, 3 to 4 months, wherein he normally gets the money. That's an assumption, right? So in this case, on ONDC platform, if there is an embedding of a working capital product,
ONDC network.
Yes. I've been told that ONDC does not like to be termed as a platform. I'll keep that in mind. Yeah. So in this case, basically, if he's doing this transaction through the ONDC network, and essentially he would normally have to wait 3 to 4 months before he kind of gets his whatever the duration for getting his payment. In this case, if there is an embedding of financial services on ONDC network with multiple MFIs or NBFCs that cater to farmers, during this transaction only, he might already be getting approved for that loan, and he would be getting an immediate payment on the goods that he sold basis on whatever underwriting algorithms were there, which data could directly be passed from the network to the financial organization, who can then process those data, underwrite the farmer, and approve and disburse that loan into the farmer's account. And on the due date, whatever reconciliation or settlement has to be done will be done via the network. Is my understanding correct, or I'm still missing out?
Absolutely correct. The only other part that I want to add to it is there is a consent layer, right? So we are very clear. If there is a law of the land which exists, it is sacrosanct. We are not here to transmit anything at all. Okay. So the law of the land has TEPA and consent which is built in, and hence there has got to be a requirement for you to connect into AA for the consent layer itself. Completely granted. Now, but that also means that, see, under normal circumstances, this same farmer would have to wait for, let's say, 3 to 4 months, right? Just as an example. And but that was because that was being set up by his particular interfacing platform, right? But now with ONDC, that farmer will turn around and say, boss, I need my money in 3 days, otherwise I won't sell it to you.
True.
Okay, so this is where that because he's used to getting his money in 3 days, or he's used to getting his money in 2 days, which is what makes his world run. If he's not able to get that, he will not be able to. So the first part to it that I'm challenging with you is that ONDC will allow the farmer to be able to command his own terms and conditions and his margins. Okay. Now that means that when his requirement for credit is going to come up, and that process that you have defined is absolutely bang on correct, that way will still work.
Right. So does this also essentially completely eliminate or in any way affect the middleman problem that a lot of farmers are currently facing, right? Wherein majority of the margin is kind of eaten up by the middlemen in today's market.
So there is a middleman part to it, and then there is the loan shark, so to speak. Okay. It will actually remove out some of the middleman part to it, not necessarily all, because some of those middlemen may actually be providing other services, and they may decide to come in and say, you know what, I build the seller application for you so that you are now going to be going on to the ONDC gateway through me, right? That is a completely possible scenario. But at the same time, for example, when we look at credit, you can't have more than one intermediary, right? Or you're looking at insurance, you can't have more than one intermediary in that particular transaction. At that point in time, some parts of it will have to rationalize out as part of the entire eco chain, which will automatically happen.
Right.
वो तो होगा.
Okay. Understood. Fair enough. Taking a step back, right? When you spoke about the use cases of an FPO, the farmer, and the auto wala, right? I think that kind of ignited an entire chain of thought process in my mind on what other unusual use cases that we haven't thought of yet can kind of come up on the ONDC network as such. So, have you essentially come across something, or have you ideated internally any use cases that you think are completely kind of offbeat? That if you can probably share a few of those, I think that would be really interesting to know.
So one was literally where we had this one organization come up to us where they use facial recognition technology to literally look at the health of the cow, or of the cattle, right? and based on that,
Okay.
be able to say what is the value of that, etc. And then associated to that, how do I add credit, right? So there is that entire. Other than this, there is this entire segment that we are looking at of seeing how can we enable the local weavers in Kanchipuram, etc., or the honey manufacturers or the saffron manufacturers to be able to send their products not just within India but also outside of India. And at the same point in time, is there a way that I can also look at it and say, can I provide you with not with purchase financing but with inventory based loans, right? And that's where the next part of it comes into picture, is, as we were talking about, was saying that all I have to do now is look at their transaction history and say, you know what, I see that you're doing this many number of transactions. Based on these transactions, I can give you a loan against this, rather than me having to believe on paperwork that I don't trust, right? Because it has not been fudged or the paperwork is not complete, etc. But now I can see that data coming in, and based on that data that is coming in, I'm able to create entire sets of underwriting models. Now, what that is also going to do, what we are seeing now, is that people from a credit perspective also turning around saying, we wanted to provide credit to these people, but we don't get access to them because we are not able to find these people are not able to find us. So that bridging that component of it is also what ONDC started to do.
Got it.
Now, I mean, when we look at that, as you said, unusual use cases, literally looking at saying that your local sabzi wala, right, your vegetable seller, and we provide him with 500 rupees because he knows that he's going to take on 500 rupees, go buy his vegetables, and then at the end of the day, he's going to repay you back. And making sure that entire the reimbursement model is also working. Otherwise, if you are just giving loans but you're not getting money back, that's a short way that you'll fail.
True. No, I think collection is equally or probably more important in that business. But having said that, I think what really kind of excites me about this specific use cases that you said, I think, is the fact that we are able to essentially leverage the power of this network to bring out local artisans whose goods have value in other parts of the world, a lot more value than what they would have in their local environment, right? For example, the viewers in Kanchipuram or probably FPOs selling, specialized local crops and those kind of things. I mean, these, for example, or, maybe a village is specializing in building a special type of pottery or whatever those local artisans are doing. Those kind of products have a lot more value in urban areas, or probably even more value in international markets. And if these people are able to get access to those markets, the profit margins and all of that would probably result in a lot more economic growth for that entire community overall, right? I mean, that really is something that's inspiring.
Absolutely, Shaz. But also, I just want to leave you with another thought, right? It is the ONDC is not set up only for that. Okay,
right?
You want to buy paste, your daily needs. You want to buy vegetables for your daily consumption. You want to buy milk for your daily consumption. Does not necessarily mean that it is only for products that you will buy once in a while. This is also set up for everything that you're buying on a daily basis, whether you're buying food or you're looking at buying grocery, or you're trying to do something about buying socks, anything, right? One of the things that we were looking at and in our research we figured out was that some of the things that are very difficult for people to buy online are things like socks. Okay, socks and underwear. So those are things that also get activated out, because simple fact of it is that, as I said earlier, right, people in tier 2, tier 3 towns are surviving, they are living, they're having a full life, but that doesn't mean that they are actually using digital commerce. But that is where we come in to try and enable that entire eco chain. There is this entire consumer spending and demand which is shifting from your metros to rest of urban, to developing urban, to other rural segments, etc., and to developing rural and all. There is an entire segment which is that entire consumer spending is changing. We we also then have to, that means that entire model of saying that I will only provide that 500 rupee tea, that part doesn't exist. I have to be able to provide for products and services which everybody needs, and they want it at a particular price point, and they want it to their associated service levels. It doesn't mean that I'm going to buy something worth 10 rupees, I want it within 20 minutes. So we have to get out of that mindset of saying that the experience and what I'm used to getting is what everybody wants. Right? We shouldn't be trying to put our thoughts onto other people, because that starts making that entire eco chain that much more inefficient.
Makes sense. Perfect. No, I think I'm glad you brought this up, right? It kind of brings me to the next question, essentially, which is that if like removing everything that I know about ONDC from my mind, if I'm a common man, how essentially my life will change? मतलब क्या चेंज होगा? मैं पहले so and so ऐप से कुछ मंगा रहा था, अब there is ONDC network behind the scenes, running its magic. So what changes for me?
Okay, let's look at it from a banking perspective, right? Let's say that there is a bank which has created a front-end buyer application.
Right.
Abhi tak, I would go to 5 different applications and know that I'm not getting the full universe of all the products, which is why I, as the customer, I'm going to 5 different or 2 different application sets, right? So that I'm able to see the entire universe of products. Now I'm just going to my bank because पैसा तो वहीं से मेरे को भेजना है finally, right? तो मैं अपने बैंक एप्लीकेशन के पास जा रहा हूँ और मैं बोल रहा हूँ मेरे को रेफ्रिजरेटर खरीदना है या मेरे को आज की दूध खरीदना है या आज का ये खरीदना है, पैसा वहीं से ही चला जाएगा. And or because of all those transaction sets that are happening, the banking application, which is the front end buyer application, now can tell me that yes, I give you your 7 days loan. जो खाता बुक चलता है उसका आपके किराने स्टोर में, वो मैं प्रोवाइड करता हूँ. आप प्रोडक्ट का आपने मांगा, जो दूसरे साइड पे गया, there is a seller application which is now seeing that there is a product being set out from XYZ seller. That person wants some kind of a credit and or wants insurance, etc. associated to that one particular transaction. All that will happen. So first things first, right? From a common man perspective, my life will change just that tad bit, because now I know that I have to spend less time trying to find that one particular product that I want. I will trust this more because I know that वो मेरे को वो नहीं दिखा रहा, वो प्रोडक्ट नहीं दिखा रहा जो प्लेटफॉर्म के लिए ठीक है. मेरे को वो प्रोडक्ट दिखा रहा है जो कुछ मिल सकता है और मेरे को जो चाहिए मैं चूज कर रहा हूँ.
Yes, makes sense.
ठीक है. और उसी के साथ साथ whatever I'm actually choosing, I am actually getting credit and insurance, etc. Along with that particular product. So I'm getting a whole bouquet of products and services to me. So as the customer, I am going to be happier. जहाँ पे मैं end of the month I would pay my credit card bill. If I have a credit card, right? If I was sending out paying my credit card bill at the end of the month, now I can actually see what थोड़ा draw down हो रहा है या वो soft block हो गया है, वो सारी चीजें आप automatically चलेंगी इसमें.
Got it. Makes sense. All right. So I think that puts a lot of things into perspective. Having said that, right, we come to the final question. How do you see India of 2 years down the line, or maybe 3 years down the line, after the impact of ONDC has completely been absorbed and been felt?
If I had a crystal ball and I could wish for, I would say that in the next 2 to 3 years, I will cover for at least 60% of India being able to transact. And whether somebody is sitting in Bombay trying to buy from Lucknow, as we were discussing earlier, or somebody sitting in Bombay itself trying to buy within Bombay. Okay, actually, that is one part. What I also foresee is in the next 2 to 3 years, there'll be a lot more demand and supply coming from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. That is where,
of course,
one part to it. The second part to it that is going to change is that in the next 2 to 3 years, things will change drastically for the finance segment, because now they'll be able to provide all of their financial services with a minimalistic cost. Primarily because, as I said, right, there is no one or two market players. There will be more competition that will be provided out. There'll be better service that will be provided out. And overall, I see an economy which is becoming that much more efficient, that much more effective. That's what I foresee in the next 2 to 3 years.
Perfect. No, I think these are super exciting times, and the fact that you brought the financial services dimension into it, I think, which I was completely oblivious to, maybe my ignorance or whatever, but I think that really puts a lot more things into perspective, from even the penetration of the financial services for certain products are still being very under-penetrated as of now. I think that could also be increased or helped because of this presence of ONDC network and all of that. And we are all, I think, super excited to see all the amazing changes that are going to come because of it. Having said that, thank you so much for your time, Mr. Rahul. I think it was really an enlightening conversation with you. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Shreyas. Take care. Bye.